all, I'm Dan Smigrod, founder of the We Get Around Network Forum. Today is Thursday, June 17th, 2021, and you're watching WGAN TV live at 5. We have an awesome show for you today. CupixWorks 2.0 versus Matterport for construction professionals. And here to talk to us about it is Gannon Wilder, product manager for Cupix. Hey, Gannon, good to see you.
Hey, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Gannon, how about we jump in immediately with a demo that shows Cupix BIM versus actual?
Yeah. Well, essentially, what Cupix does is we enable you to take small 360 cameras, walk around in a variety of different modes to capture a site. So we have a lot of unique algorithms of how we're capturing and processing the data.
Awesome, Gannon, let's cover that, but let's first do the show so we can see what it actually looks like, and then we'll talk about how you capture it and the magic. I think you got so much magic just on this one screen of being able to show a BIM model versus a street view-like experience that I think that's really, I think, the place for us to begin. And then we'll talk about how you do this magic.
Yeah, so we could we have a lot of stuff to show today. But one of the powerful features we built within Cupix is the ability to align your virtual tour within a BIM environment. And so this is fully navigable space. It's not just a rendering of the model. You actually have the entire live model built in. So as you navigate the space, you can see the overlay of ductwork, of built walls. Just like in BIM, you can have a variety of layers turned on. So this one I think is actually without the interior wall layer. But this essentially lets you compare as built documentations at a certain point in time with the design model.
And so anything that you can do in a BIM model can be turned on and off. So if you want to look at mechanical, electrical, plumbing, you can do that in your BIM model within CupixWorks Player.
Yes. So you can upload an entire full BIM model, and then as you need to turn on or off layers to be able to see specific areas you're interested in.
Okay, and then what we're looking at on the left side is the actual 3D tour. So if you're actually walking through this space that's been captured in a point in time.
Exactly, and you're able to capture by video by walking through the site, or in more traditional methods of where you stop, take a pano, and move forward, and we're able to track your position within it. Okay,
could we walk a little bit more through this space? And it just automatically syncs to the BIM.
Yeah, so you can see we're just moving through the facility.
Awesome. Talk to me about the map that we're looking at, the floor plan, the 2D floor plan in the bottom left, please.
Yeah, I mean, within Cupix, the viewer is built for managing any variety of projects. So we actually can filter by layers. In this specific project, we have just a single layer. But if you have a multi-floor building, this drops down and you can actually see multiple levels. You can easily pop between different levels of your plan, and then also easily track your position within that layer.
So can I walk through this space by clicking on the floor plan on the bottom left?
Yeah, as you see, I can click and navigate to completely different areas. As you're moving around, every single pano is oriented, within full 6 degrees of freedom within the 3D space. So within the 2D model or 2D plan, and also like the BIM model.
So you can click anywhere there was a 360 panorama that was shot, or just click on the actual space to walk through it.
Correct.
Okay. I think I see some annotation in the space. Can you point out what we're looking at on the left side?
Yeah, and I can just turn on that view to see more detail of it. Is yeah, you're able to track issues, RFIs, tasks within the space, and they're all tracked. You can see them spatially on the map view. So you can see where different areas are tagged, and you can go actually navigate to that specific area. You can also see it from the list view and navigate from the list. And just while we're here, we can note that we do have several integrations with Procore, PlanGrid, and BIM 360. So we can also pull data or push data from these systems and track it spatially where it's located on a 2D map.
So, so there's a seamless integration with, I think I heard PlanGrid, Procore. Was there another one?
PlanGrid, Procore, and BIM 360.
And BIM 360. So if the architect, engineers, general contractors, building owners, if they're using any of those existing platforms, they seamlessly integrate with CupixWorks. Correct.
And really the power that we enable is, we're not primarily an issue tracking system. We give you the ability to spatially contextualize these issues on your site. So instead of only just looking at maybe a 2D map or a plan, or just a static image, you can go to the issue, click on the issue, open it up, navigate fully around that environment to understand this issue. And we also give the capability to maybe track like what's been going on with this issue over time. Because people are typically scanning, maybe on a weekly basis, maybe every 2 weeks or once a month, we have a list of multiple times the site was captured. So if I can't quite figure out what's going on in this photo, I can maybe go to the month before. It automatically, and you notice the transition was not in the same spot exactly. It's like, maybe like 5 feet away from each other. But we automatically can detect the nearest pano to your location.
A pano being a panorama 360 photo.
Correct. Yes, 360 imagery.
So could you give us a comparison of weekly construction documentation? In my mind, I'm thinking about a 25-story, 500,000 square foot office building that needs renovation. We're doing the potential client is considering either CupixWorks or Matterport to shoot weekly construction documentation and take advantage of the platform's features. Could we look at a weekly construction documentation comparison?
Yeah, definitely. So beyond being able just to navigate within a single view to different points within the timeline to see progress, you can actually see them compared side by side. And like I mentioned before, we automatically find and detect where the nearest imagery is. So the capture locations may not, you don't have to manually sync them between dates. You just capture the entire floor on one date, capture the entire floor on a second date, and they're able to sync together.
Okay, so it may be hard for our viewers to see the label in the bottom middle, but that is a date of when the Cupix 3D tour was taken, and then another date of the same space. So this would be an example of maybe either comparing weekly construction or monthly construction documentation.
Correct, and it enables you to track progress of the specific location throughout your entire site. And it gives you that archival and contextual awareness throughout the entire project.
Okay. Awesome. So forgive me, I interrupted you at the beginning of the show. You were starting to talk about how imagery is captured for this. I think this is the context to be able to see BIM compared to actual, or actual compared to actual in terms of progress. How do you actually create the imagery that's used in the CupixWorks platform?
Yeah. One of the big strengths of Cupix is we have actually a variety of methods for being able to capture a site. One of those, they all start with just the simple 360 camera. So we work with a lot of different hardwares. You can see our list online. But essentially, you walk around this an iOS app on most of the time an iPhone. You could use an iPad as well to capture a site. Now you essentially have.
So for clarification, you're using either the iPhone or the iPad in order to run the camera, but it's
Correct.
actually the camera that's capturing the imagery.
Yes. So we only our algorithms specifically only deal with 360 imagery, and our app enables you to capture a couple different ways. So we have like high resolution HDR methods where you stop, stand still, take a capture, and then move around. And then we're able to stitch each location together. And that's a similar concept to what a lot of Matterport users do, that they'll be familiar with, is different tripod locations going around, except this can be handheld and held in really in any orientation. Even if you stick it out to the side, stick it through a window or stick it through a shaft, an elevator core, we're still able to orient the navigation and each image so that you're looking at it correct.
Okay. Let me go a little bit slower with you. Capture is really an important feature of Cupix. So it's a device agnostic. So any 360 camera can be used to capture imagery for CupixWorks.
Many 360 cameras can be used.
Many. And now, is that because the Cupix app that works on iOS only works with certain 360 cameras?
The behind the scenes of why working with different cameras, it's always like calibration issues and things like that. So you have to do a lot of work to add a new 360 camera.
Okay. Well, give us the short list. What's the short list of under $1,000 360 cameras that are compatible with CupixWorks?
The primary cameras we work with is we have the Ricoh Theta line of cameras.
Okay, Ricoh Theta V, Ricoh Theta Z1, Ricoh Theta.
We specifically work with V and Z1.
V and Z1, okay.
And then another one that we really enjoy using is the Mad V. It's not as well known, but it works really well for our purpose. And this is only like our entire camera kit with this is just like $300 to get started.
Okay, we'll come to pricing later, but any additional 360 cameras presently supported by Cupix?
And we also work with the Insta camera lines.
Okay, so Insta360 1X2, Insta360 1X, Insta360 1R.
The 1R and the 1X, those two.
Okay, and but not the X2.
Correct.
As of today.
As of today.
As of today, Thursday, June 17th, 2021. Okay, great. Then, and I believe you can use other cameras, but really in terms of a fast, efficient workflow, these are the cameras we're really talking about.
In terms of, I don't think we really allow integration with other cameras. So primarily just that list of 4.
Okay,
cameras.
So and let's take the Ricoh Theta Z1, $1,000 camera. 3 ways to use it or 4 ways?
Essentially, yeah, there's 4 ways to use it, and I have just a quick little video just showing people.
That'd be great.
I can pull that up for you. And essentially there's a couple methods. First is the single shot. That's where for every capture, you have a floor plan on your phone. You just select where on the floor plan you are, and then it just takes a static image. And actually, so we have different capture modes. We also have different ways to hold the camera. You can, as in this video, use like a monopod or some kind of pull like that. You can use just a handheld selfie stick to hold it. Many people have a camera mount on their helmet. I think this one actually shows it. So here you can see you have the camera attached to your helmet, and this is primarily used in like video mode, where it's easy. You don't even have to hold anything in your hands. You just click go with the video and walk through the site. And just recently we did start supporting a different method of capture. Lots of our customers were using this way on our site. So we're starting to make this a little bit more public now, but actually allowing you to capture via a drone. So mount the camera to the drone and fly it, which is good for getting different perspectives of your site, and for exterior views of the building.
On the drone, do you still need to maintain connectivity with an iOS device?
The workflow is a little bit different. So no, you do not. You capture the data separately, and then we have a different way to upload the data into our servers.
Awesome. And that fourth method, I see cluster shot. Can you explain that?
Cluster shot is what would be most familiar to Matterport users. It's where you take a series of individual shots, and then it's a different type of algorithm than what does a video where you're walking fluidly. This you could essentially, have the camera in any angle around any variety of pieces of equipment and things like that, and take high resolution captures that way. So typically, most of our users do some combination of video shot and cluster shot on their projects.
So I imagine there's some trade-offs and reasons. When do I want to use a single shot? Perhaps I am just moving a tripod, or I'm just holding up a selfie stick with the camera, versus having video capture.
People like a video and cluster because that's an automatic process that allows them to just quickly place captures throughout a site and move quickly. Single shot could be for people who want a lot more control in exactly where their images are taken, and they're maybe not taking as high volume number of captures. So perhaps you're happy just having a single shot in each room, and you just want to place one imagery location in each room in a floor plan. So you can go in there, just add one and then walk out. Where if you do cluster shot or video, you're frequently capturing probably multiple shot images as you walk into the room and then walk back out.
Is there a trade-off on the quality of the imagery of doing single shot versus video?
The highest quality imagery relates to using single shot and also cluster shot, because each of those you're taking a single frame from the camera, and we also have HDR modes, so you can do the HDR modes that are built in with these devices. With video, it's captured as a time-lapse video, so 2 frames every second, and those videos do come in at you get a little bit more image blur, a little bit more exposure setting issues. So the videos are not as clear as like single and cluster.
So I imagine that if I am interested in speed of capture, particularly with weekly construction documentation, if I'm talking about a 25-story, 500,000 square foot office building under renovation, I probably want to be in video mode, and I likely don't really care as much about the image quality, and so speed of capture. Does that sound when I would want to be on video mode?
Yeah, and we really find people like a hybrid of both methods. So whether many times for large areas or areas where you don't necessarily have as or need as high resolution in, you do the video shot because you're you can capture it so much faster. But then for maybe key locations, really complicated areas where you want to get a lot of detail, then you switch over to cluster shot to be able to capture those like key locations.
Okay, and the single shot might be, oh, the building's ready to be delivered. It's got all its nice finishes. You really care about the photography. Then you might move to HDR single shot in order to capture the space towards the conclusion of the project.
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, if you want more control over the site, or you just want just a more simple method, yeah, single shot, you're able to capture it that way.
Do you have any estimates on how long it takes to do a capture? Ah, look at this. Great.
Yeah, and you can see like the differences is about 20x depending on the environment. So, you know, like everyone familiar in site capture, the complexity in the environment is always a huge factor. So here we're comparing an open, like wide open warehouse space, or maybe like an outdoor location compared to an environment, maybe like an office building or complex like industrial facility or factory that has lots of rooms or lots of equipment you have to move around. So the fastest method is the video shot. And we have customers doing multi-hundred square foot facilities on a weekly basis. So they do a lot of video, just put on the helmet, walk around. And we've seen about 750,000 square feet an hour. And that's just walking at a steady pace and video shot. Many times we say walk like you have a hot cup of coffee. So you never want to be too abrupt in your movements, but just smooth and steady pace.
So I am literally tingling looking at this slide because I am either in amazement or disbelief. So I need to understand a little bit more. Let's stay on this slide just for a moment. On open warehouse space using video, 750,000 square feet. Can I even walk that fast? I mean, is that, and I'm thinking when I do rows of walking that kind of have the imagery connected, I probably can't be more than what, 5 to 7 feet away, or help me understand. So if I was doing Matterport, for example, which Matterport officially supports up to 10,000 square feet, officially supports up to 200 scans. I think they would probably push back and say, well, we have a way we can do 100,000 or 200 or 300 or 400,000 square feet, but it probably maxes out there and you may or may not be successful actually completing your scan. So these numbers are really incredible in terms of capture. I just want to see how best we can make it apples to apples comparison. So if I'm doing 750,000 square feet, is that based on that I'm walking briskly and I'm doing a row every 5 to 7 feet to my left?
So it works a little differently in that you don't necessarily have to have the spacing like parallel between parallel lanes. If you're like zigzagging, doing a little lawnmower pattern through a facility, you don't have to stay within like 5 feet or 10 feet of each lane. Typically, I'm looking back, and actually I can show an example in a little bit. I think they're doing one in each bay. So it might be like 20, 30 feet for each path, but we're tracking like the linear path that the person is walking.
And will that still create a 3-dimensional model that I can walk from, let's call scan to scan to scan to scan? Even though I was in lane 1, I now can walk to lane 2, even though it was shot some distance away.
Yeah. So you're able to navigate our full like 3D virtual space. If you have a model, like a 3D model uploaded to your project, it's automatically located within that. If not, we're just automatically located within a floor plan.
So looking at this slide, I can't overemphasize this because this really just blows me away looking at it. Even if we go to many small rooms using video and capturing 35,000 square feet, I would say maybe a Matterport photographer could do 35,000 square feet, maybe 2,000 square feet an hour. So essentially, this is saying it's at least double the speed of Matterport. And I think if I was in the AEC space, one of the questions I'd want to ask Matterport is, hey, officially, how many scans do you support? Officially, how many square feet do you support? So that you get that in writing, because every time in the We Get Around Network forum, somebody runs into a problem doing Matterport of a large space, it's because eventually Matterport comes back and says, well, we don't actually support tours that are bigger than 10,000 square feet and 200 scans, even though their salespeople will tell you, oh no, we can shoot 300,000 square feet, 400,000 square feet without a problem. So get it in writing. That would be a great question to ask. So, even doing 35,000 square feet for Matterport, even if it was possible to do 2,000 square feet an hour, that's still about 17 hours compared to 1 hour. Am I making this up here?
Yeah, and and that's one of the huge aspects is, like, you know, most of the people on site, many times they're not even capturing for a full hour each week. They might go walk around for 30 minutes, capture their site, come back to the office, and they're done for the week.
Yeah, so I mean, we've spent a lot of time on this slide because it's absolutely that important. You know, if you're an architect, you're an engineer, you're a general contractor, you probably understand that the most expensive part of capture is actually the person who's doing the capture. So if you can do capture in an hour with Cupix versus Matterport that might take 17 hours and struggle to actually process the model, that's crazy.
Yeah, and that's one of the aspects of the speed of capture is one, and also the scale of a site is another. We don't have any limits on number of images or number of captures we have on a site, or even square footage. We have some facilities that are very massive. I don't know the numbers, but like just these massive developments going on, and we're able to load them all up and render them. It's pretty exciting.
And in terms of capture, so let's say we are talking about 1 million square feet. We'll go back to my example. 500,000 square feet, 25 stories, 500,000 square feet. Does that have to be captured by one person, or could 5 people all take a floor, or take 5 floors of that building?
Yeah, it is possible to merge captures from like multiple devices or multiple people together, and then have them all synthesized in our viewer. So you could have, if you want to break up the work a certain way, you could have people.
With 25-story building, 5 people, each doing 5 floors. But I think what I'm even hearing is 500,000 square feet for Cupix is not really a big deal for someone to walk the entire space every day, or every week, or every month, whatever's needed in terms of construction documentation. Yeah. But I ask because with Matterport, you can't merge floors from different cameras. You can use a different camera. You can switch from a BLK 360 to a Matterport Pro 2 to a Ricoh Theta Z1 in the same shoot, but it must be one model that's shot. So you don't have the ability to have 5 different people all work on the same space in order to get the documentation done sooner. Maybe we're talking about a space that has people and you're limited by certain hours, and therefore you need to have multiple people do the data collection, so you're not capturing when office hours or mall hours are, for example.
Yeah. and that is, a benefit of Cupix is you have multiple people, different cameras. Typically, what we see is maybe you have one person tasked with like, hey, you need to capture every week at a specific time, and they can go and capture the video just walking around the site. And then other people that, as issues come up or as key locations need to be tracked, they're like, hey, we have like these 3 spots we really want like high resolution in. Can you go and do that? And so like, they might use a different camera or a different method, like video method versus like the cluster method. But essentially you're able to merge all of it together into our viewer.
And I think when you're describing cluster, I think the interesting thing there is if you needed close-ups of mechanical or plumbing, electrical that's up in the ceiling, you literally can, or around the boiler in order to capture depth data, you can just move that camera anywhere. That's really not possible with Matterport. You can't, in a practical sense, put the Matterport camera up into the ceiling, let alone tilt it at some angle. So that seems like a tremendous advantage of Cupix when you got odd spaces that need to be captured, particularly mechanical, electrical, plumbing related spaces. How about outdoors? Are any issues with capture outdoors?
No limitations with outdoors because we're primarily only using, it's just a standard 360 camera. We're not dealing with the infrared type of depth sensor like Matterport has. So there's no limitations based off like the infrared light.
So if you were interested in doing, let's say the top floor that's under construction and there's no ceiling and the sun is pouring in, doesn't affect Cupix capture in any way. For Matterport, I guess if you're in the AEC space, the question to ask Matterport is, help me understand the difference of a 360 view and a 360 scan, and help me understand what the difference of the walk around experience is, and help me understand what I can measure and can't measure. Because there's, I think what Matterport would probably say is, oh no, you can shoot outdoors. That's not a problem. You just use a 360 view. But again, that doesn't allow the measurement. I could imagine with Cupix, no matter how you capture the data, you still can measure 3-dimensionally within the model.
Yeah, that's correct. With Cupix, or the two aspects. So with the lighting, the only effect that the lighting has is, similar to all cameras, just making sure the exposure is right. If you're going between like a really dark place to a really bright space, just make sure, just in video mode, it doesn't adjust as well as like in individual mode does.
Okay. All right, so I've come out. I've done my 360 photography. Let's say I did my video, 25 stories, 500 square feet. It's an office building. Okay, how do I get it into the Cupix Works platform?
It's it's similar to kind of the traditional process people are familiar with from Matterport. Is you just simply upload the images, upload the scans to our servers. Our cloud processes on it. Our turnaround time is at max 24 hours. So typically, if people are scanning their construction project one day, they get it the following morning. Yeah, and then from there you have it in your viewer, and you can sort by dates, sort by levels, and navigate your entire project.
Okay, so I'm hearing 24 hours, but I think I heard something else too. If it's by the end of the day, maybe I'm done on my job site at 6 or 8 p.m. Is there a reasonable expectation that I might wake up in the morning at be in the office 8 or 9, be on the site 8 or 9, and it's ready? So is the commitment level 24 hours, but typically it's still ready overnight for most of us in the United States?
Correct. Yeah. So max time that we kind of guarantee and promise is that 24 hours. Average times are much faster than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
what I would just suggest for our audience who might be thinking, oh, I'm looking at Matterport, but I heard of Cupix, CupixWorks, and I'm trying to understand the difference. Again, I would say ask the Matterport rep that if you have a model of 500 square feet, I think the short answer is it's just not possible with Matterport. But let's say it was 100 that you broke up the building into 25 models. You now have maybe 50,000 square feet or 100,000 square feet. Ask the question, how long does that take to process? Because you might be surprised that it doesn't come back in 24 hours and it might take 2 days or 3 days, but there's certainly no commitment level that I'm aware of at Matterport to say we guarantee that we will process your model within 24 hours of that size.
Mm-hmm. And one aspect that we also provide to our customers is after all the algorithms are done processing, we always have our customer success rep look at each model to QA it and to make sure that we're delivering a good result back to you. And so we have people, our customer support team, actively working with our customers to make sure that they are able to capture their projects.
So this is interesting because Matterport just processes the model automatically and sends it back. I think I'm hearing something slightly different here. Is our process is automated, but that said, if there is an issue, we actually have a QA, a quality control person that's actually looking at it before it gets delivered in case there needs to be some cleanup or adjustments.
Exactly. And there's, because you're dealing with people with a camera on their helmet, they're walking around a site. Sometimes they just like walk too fast or whip around corners, things like that. And so that's a situation where we're like, hey, these 4 frames where you ran around this corner, they kind of broke and they're like not oriented the correct way. So we'll fix it for you. And then we get the feedback, but next time, try not to do that again. And so that's the benefit is we're able to work with our people to have success on every project.
Awesome. Okay, so model's been processed. Talk about hosting. Cloud hosted is it, can I host it on my own server or does it need to be cloud hosted? And if so, what's the security?
And that's definitely one of the benefits of Cupix is we give you a lot more flexibility in terms of data ownership, owning your data, in terms of where it's hosted. We use AWS. If you are have high security constraints, you can use private AWS servers. There's like government approved AWS servers. So there are a lot of options for you to own the data, download the data, or control it at the end of a project, or make sure it's on approved locations during a project. And
is there offline hosting as well?
There's not offline hosting, but there is an aspect for our enterprise level customers. Many times the site documentation needs to be preserved for many years after a project. You are allowed to download the data to keep it in a secure file for archival. And then we do have an offline viewer to be able to access it. But if you ever need to spin up that project again, say for example, we have many people using us through like the pre-construction, during construction, and the handover. So that gets more to facility management and over the entire life cycle of the building. If you're using it more from facility management perspective, then you need to use the hosted version online.
Okay, so let me see if I can break this down a little bit. So a typical client understands AWS, Amazon Cloud, totally happy, know that it's reliable, secure, and it's accessible. But if I'm a super large client and I have my own Amazon Cloud and I want the data hosted in my Amazon Cloud, that's okay with Cupix.
Correct. Yeah, we can set that up for enterprise level customers.
Okay, so Matterport doesn't do that. So if you are again, if you're looking at Matterport, ask your rep ask them every which way to Sunday to say, I have my own Amazon cloud. I want it hosted in my cloud. And if you get an answer, yes, please get back to us. And then we get around that work form, because as far as we know, that's never, ever happened. Second, in terms of ownership and use of the data. So does Cupix take any ownership in the data? Does it use the data for any other purpose?
So that is another aspect, because this industry, yeah, people want to control their data. People want to control their projects. There's a huge liability, these huge projects online. So we have it that, customers do control their data and completely own their data. When they shut down a project or remove it, we don't have access to it anymore. So it require them to save like an offline copy. And
does Cupix create derivative works from the data?
There is an option that some customers can opt into, is to allow us to use their data for R&D purposes. Much of that is our research related to the algorithms, which is doing the processing.
But that's an opt-in if customers want.
Yeah, you can opt in.
So again, if you're in the AEC space and you're comparing Matterport and Cupix, one of the questions you want to ask your Matterport rep is, I understand that the user agreement allows Matterport to create derivative works from the models that we upload to the platform, and probe on that. And if they say that that's not the case, get that in writing, because Matterport does create derivative works from Matterport tours and uses that in other ways and sells it in other ways and is likely to use it in APIs. So something to ask. It's likely that you'll get the answer that you own the copyright in your work, but the fact is the copyright, your work can only be displayed within Matterport. There's no offline hosting. So something to probe is ownership of data. Let's talk a little about password control and access. I think I want to ask this a little bit differently. It's an open-ended question. Tell me about CupixWorks collaboration.
Yeah, we understand on an active project, you have many different levels of people operating at many different locations or areas within the project. So we actually have a very detailed hierarchy of permissions in terms of groups of types of people that are allowed to view it, how much access they have, whether it's view only, whether it's view and comment, or whether it's edit the project as well. For example, we have owners who want to have access to the entire project. But if you're a general contractor and perhaps you're using this tool for your coordination meetings, you can give out access to Cupix to all of your individual subcontractors, but perhaps limit that by a specific level, so only a single floor of a building. You could even limit access by specific dates, so only give them a date window in which they're allowed to view. So there's many different options for controlling the levels of how much detail they can see, what they're allowed to do with that information, and then who can use it. So we have a very robust system specifically designed for the AEC industry.
So I would suggest anyone that's interested in is thinking about Matterport and CupixWorks, ask your Matterport rep about collaboration, because collaboration is super limited in terms of I'm the admin of it, or I've given someone access to annotate. And unless something's changed recently, that's about it. So all the different granular descriptions, Gannon, that you've described for CupixWorks is just not even an option with Matterport. Collaboration, access, permissions. I think you have some collaboration features in terms of real-time and annotation, and maybe could you talk a little bit about that for CupixWorks?
Yeah, the annotation feature, we showed a little bit of that earlier. the big aspect that we enable is, in many ways, just standard issue tracking, standard logging of questions, tasks, RFIs. But what really makes it unique is that spatial component, being able to navigate it within a 2D model, within a 3D model, knowing exactly where these issues are. Don't jump in and look around. And the one other benefit is we do have a lot of deep like BIM integrations. So depending on which, we have active integrations directly with BIM 360, PlanGrid, and Procore. But if you're working with, say, some facility management software or some other system, we can actually export all this data in like what's called a BCF format, which is like a new BIM specific industry format for maintaining all the metadata of the information, as well as like the spatial location, so you can move it in and out of our system.
BCF, BIM
BCF.
Collaboration Format.
Correct.
So, so it sounds like if you're trying to make a decision between Matterport and CupixWorks, one of the things to ask your internal team is which platforms are important to us. So if PlanGrid and Procore and BIM 360 and perhaps yet other BIM related solutions that can integrate with BCF, is to ask Matterport what integrations they have. Because when I look at CupixWorks, one of the things that strikes me is it's a living three-dimensional model that allows for annotation by any trade to document problems, challenges, and to easily pinpoint it within a three-dimensional model, as opposed to, oh, I've taken a photo and I've emailed it off to someone. Do you want to talk any more about how that annotation fits into reducing site visits or reduce rework or tracking progress or preventing disputes?
Yeah, I mean, and the biggest thing is really just providing all the information in one place. So having like a single hub that can act as, like you said, your living, breathing, like as-built documentation. Another popular term is the digital twin. So really documenting, you have the history of all these issues within the space. You have the timeline of issues over time, of the photos over time. A couple other things, that I'll mention is we also have, like, when you bring up the concepts of BIM, is we essentially understand a site at like 3 different levels. We understand it at the level, like what floor are you on, at time, like what point in time are you looking at? And you can also look at the concept of rooms, which is like an area or a grouping of information. So like on a large project, you can have a table of, if you have a BIM model and you import your like Revit model, it can automatically extract the names and an area of different rooms. So this is another way for you to like manage or quickly navigate through specific areas. Like, hey, I want to go to this classroom and see what was happening here on like September 13th.
Gannon, forgive me, the print is so small, even I have trouble with it. Could you just, in a big picture, describe the columns and the rows?
Yeah, here on the left is the list of rooms. So this is the same concept of in your BIM model or floor plan. You have the different, just different room names. I think if I make this map bigger, we can see that in a second. And then to the right is this is the time lapse aspect. So over time, a capture on June 4th. Capture on July 19th, September 13th. So you can go to a specific date and time and a specific level.
And how hard is it to find that annotation in a specific room on a specific date?
Like if you know the name of a space, you can just type it in and query, and it'll just find it right here. So we even have a search bar. So if you know you're looking for like specifically mechanical room 105 or anything, you can just type in like MEP 105 and you can find that, query it, see what dates you have capture. In this case, we have all dates have capture. It's possible you might have like a capture a couple of times, but not every time.
Yes. So when you called up that specific room, it called up the 3D tour and BIM models for that room. And now I imagine with those, either those tabs at the bottom, the labels at the bottom of each 3D tour, that you can change the date, or in your information panel at the right, select one of those markers by date to take you there. So it looks like you have two ways to get there.
Yeah, you have many ways to get there. You can search by the name in the search bar, go to a specific room. You can pick a date in the table view, pick a date in the main view. So they're really, depending on just like even how you like think, like you're in a project, you're just thinking like, I want to get to this area. We make it easy to navigate to that section.
And can you just take us through the annotation and either point out if that's a plan grid or if that's a is that part of the Cupix native platform for annotation?
Yeah, so within the native application for annotations, we have the ability to even create like templates or groups. So depending on like the type of projects you're on, you can even have preset forms. So if you need to go through a facility to do an inspection, you have a preset form of questions. So you can even set that up within your template. So you can go through an area, select one of those questions, fill it out, and do that quickly. And really in terms of how it syncs, whether you're using Procore or PlanGrid, it kind of all syncs the same way as you add the annotation. It tracks the location, and it says that you're able to take those notes.
And so those notes, I think at the highest level, is about reducing site visits. Inspect, measure, annotate. I think we'll take a look at that in a second. Reducing rework, tracking progress, preventing disputes. At the highest level, that's what this level of detail is about.
Yeah, it's however you're really managing your project, it gives you that option to do it that way.
Okay, let's just, before we take it off screen share, I just want to pause a moment. So again, if you're in the AEC space and you're trying to make a decision, you've heard about Matterport, kind of the gorilla in the space, most investment perhaps, but nevertheless, you've discovered CupixWorks and you're trying to compare CupixWorks 2.0 versus Matterport. What Gannon is showing us here is side by side, either side by side weekly, monthly, daily construction progress, or side by side with BIM. Ask your Matterport rep if you can do that. Short answer, no, you can't. There's no side by side comparison in Matterport of anything like this. And if you find that little mini map in the left side helpful for navigation, Matterport does not offer that solution for navigation. Now, that said, there's something called the highlight reel in Matterport. Does CupixWorks have thumbnails within the tour to jump from place to place?
There's concepts like that too, and very popular like construction tools like Navisworks that are called like viewpoints. So we don't have viewpoints in that way where you can curate a list of views. Though typically the way people do that is just when you share a model, you can share and create a new link. So whenever you create a new share link, it actually saves that view. So if you want to send a specific view to someone, you could do it that way, or potentially through an RFI, through a annotation.
Okay. And in the collaboration, is there anything like Skype or excuse me, Zoom? Is there anything like Zoom meets CupixWorks built in to the platform?
No video conferencing aspect. The main aspect is for asynchronous communication, going back and forth between comments and annotations. You can see who's actively in a model. So if you have multiple people in a model at a time, you can see that, but for the most part, it's the purpose is to share and communicate about an issue.
Okay, so the safety person may annotate a model overnight, asynchronously give direction about things on the job site that need to be dealt with now.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a viable use case. And you mentioned a couple of things earlier in terms of like unique captures or ways. And I think you just mentioned, like, can you go above ceiling? And this is really like just a perennial problem or challenge. It's very hard to document these complex spaces. And you know, in like typically healthcare facilities, you're only allowed to access things. It has to be very secure and sealed through something like this to prevent dust and contaminants from getting into these like sensitive labs. And so in this capture, you can see this entire floor plan. We capture an entire like wing of a facility, but in this one specific room, they wanted to get to the above ceiling. So we actually have that as a layer. So we're able to capture the floor plan and then come up through here. And where's the hole at the bottom? Oh, there it is, right there. So you can see, you're in this sealed barrier, and with a long extension pole, essentially be able to stick the camera in different angles and see the space. So you can see there's not even much room around here. And there's a corner right here. Just to illustrate this a little bit more, and this is what we say when we have it in 3D, is we actually have the exact orientation of each panorama photo of this above ceiling space. So each photo is tied into the exact location.
So is there a layer that I can say, show me anything above 7 feet?
Typically, like how this is oriented is just the level feature. So you can go to the below ceiling or the above ceiling level.
Okay, great. Okay. That's amazing itself. Certainly Matterport does not offer that.
Yeah, and documenting environments like this are near impossible.
Yeah, I would say, you could probably do this in a Matterport tour using a 360 camera and set it on a 360 view, but good luck in terms of having it show up in the right place and having to deal with manually moving the location of that 360 to actually be in the right place. So
correct, and that's what it's like the mode that enables this type of capture is that cluster, where you can take a series of individual shots, and then it's a unique algorithm we do that where we can fit them all together in the correct position.
Okay, I did ask you about the highlight reel, and you answered about how you could just share a specific link. But I think that what I think of as a mini map, the 2D schematic floor plan in the left, I would imagine everyone in AEC in the construction space is just used to reading floor plans. And that's probably the most natural way in the AEC space to navigate the space and quickly go to a specific, and I'm guessing on this little mini map in the bottom left gives me a choice of floors. Is that I could say, I want to be on floor 2, floor 3, or maybe that's when I'm changing the floor for the tour, the mini map is automatically changing as well.
Correct. So whenever you switch, so you can see we're at the entire hospital floor now. Once I switch down to the bottom floor, versus when I switch to the above ceiling, you just see that reflective ceiling plan.
Yeah.
So we actually can, projects have like dozens and dozens of floor plans. So you can upload multiple floor plans, multiple construction documents, multiple 3D models to the site and cycle between them as needed.
And does the 360 panorama, each one of those dots representing the 360 panorama, does it show up on this floor plan automatically? Or does somebody actually have to put the 360s in the right place?
Yeah, and so that's the magic of the algorithm is we have it set. It requires a floor plan to start with. So you start with the floor plan, but once you have that,
So where's
we're
that
able
floor
to.
plan come from? That comes from the client who has a floor plan and just simply uploads it. And then is this the algorithm or is this the quality control person or a little bit of both?
The very first time you start a project, so like the very first time, you have to set up the floor plan, and when you import it, there's like a couple steps in like a wizard just to import it. But once you have that set up, then the algorithm automatically locates it within the floor plan. So just while you're capturing, you say I'm on floor 1, I'm on floor 2, and then it's able to fit its location within that map.
So how does the camera or the Cupix iOS app know where it is in the floor plan? Are you telling it when you capture to say, hey, this is where I am on the floor plan?
There's a couple of quick cues, manual input that we request. For example, if you're doing a video walk through a floor plan, you say this is where I started, just to give it an initial constraint. But then after that, it's completely automatic.
That's awesome. You know, Gannon, what I love about you showing this piece to me right now is like, well, of course, this is how it works. But anyone who's trying to make a decision about Matterport and CupixWorks should take those shots from this show and say, hey, Matterport sales rep, I'd like to see your mini map of the 2D schematic floor plan showing where I am within the space. And the short answer is Matterport does not offer that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's, one of the aspects of, from the beginning, we built this from the ground up for AEC users to be used in construction and the design process. And ours is less of a highly polished marketing tool. Instead, it's a very like robust and functional tool that integrates with like a lot of BIM software, construction software.
Let me go back for a moment to the hosting. We talked about that there's an offline storage version and there is a viewer. So it sounds like with CupixWorks, if you needed to have the model offline, do you still get the full viewing robust experience?
Our so the model offline is primarily a kind of archival and compliance capability. So it's not as much for active projects, and it has limited functionality. So the offline viewer is able to save the floor plans and all the imagery. So you can still navigate, move around, but none of the other functionality works. So it's primarily just for viewing once a project is complete. But that's more of a niche use case.
That's fine. And then would I still use that offline archive to upload again to Cupix if I needed to restore that model for use?
If you ever wanted to restore it and turn it into an active project again, you can activate a new license of Cupix and yes, upload it.
Okay, and then talk to me a little bit about backup. So it's in the Amazon cloud. Is it if I needed to add to a model, I can add to a model.
Yeah. It's all the redundancies and backups and capabilities that you would expect from like a cloud software. So there's multiple like safety layers.
Okay. So someone who's particularly interested in backups and security and privacy, obviously ask CupixWorks more on that topic. I think that the questions to ask with Matterport is to say, please explain the backup process with Matterport, because I would tell you that there really is no practical backup process. They'll explain how you can save files on your iPad through a very convoluted process, but one would think that you would just upload it to the Matterport cloud, and if you ever needed to download it, you could. And the short answer is no, Matterport doesn't offer that, and there is no practical Matterport backup or offline, with the exception as Matterport enables the downloading of a model to an iPad, but once it's down on the iPad, you don't have any way to actually share it or do anything with it. And I think the other piece to probe on Matterport would be offline archive, because there isn't. You can, and there isn't any practical way to store stuff, and there isn't any practical way unless you literally save your iPads. And every time you shoot a project, once you fill up an iPad, is to go buy another iPad. Or I could explain. In fact, I'll just simply send people to the We Get Around Network forum, WGAN forum.com, and use the search box for warning Will Robinson or backup or restore, and that'll take you to a lot of discussions on this crazy topic of excuse me, of Matterport backup and restore. Really just horrible. And they know it. It's something that the We Get Around Network forum community has documented probably for 7.5 years of what's the backup and restore process. So happy to hear with Cupix, at least you can archive it and have it. And then you have all these methods for backup in the cloud. In terms of on your website, Cupix.com, CUPIX.com, there's a discussion about cameras and kits. Can you tell me a little bit about CupixWorks kits?
Yeah, essentially we allow, like I mentioned before, a variety of capture methods. And it's all just to provide ultimate flexibility. Do
I buy my own Ricoh Theta Z1, or do you like load me up with the gear that I need based on the project that I am about to begin doing?
If you have a camera and a selfie stick, essentially you could use that, and that is fine. Most of our customers don't want to have to think about that or go find things on the market. So we provide pre-bundled packages depending on their needs. So we have a variety of cameras available, bundled, along with things like external battery, external lighting for unique like low light environments. Different options are, there's the helmet mount if you're wanting to do the walkthrough quickly. Sometimes there's an extended pole that can go up to 15 feet. If you're trying to get high up, maybe above ceiling, maybe above tall equipment. What else? Yeah, those are the main options. So essentially, like, short selfie stick, long pole, helmet, drone mount. Those are some of the options that we give people.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is a little bit different than Matterport. Matterport will tell you what cameras are compatible, go buy it. If you're in the AEC space and you're looking at CupixWorks and you define what the project is, Cupix will put together the kit for you of the gear that's necessary to shoot it. So you don't have to think about, well, what is it that I need? It all comes in a kit.
Yeah, and we have some guides to be able to let you know which kit items you need. And really, we're built around flexibility, whether you want to put on a drone, whether you want to walk around with a video, do individual shots. So we have people like documenting like shipping containers or submarines to just like standard construction sites, office spaces. So, running the gamut really.
Which kind of, it diverts me a little bit, but it's such an interesting question. So on a submarine, I could imagine there's a lot of security issues when the imagery gets uploaded to Cupix. Do you have any access to see what's being processed? Do your customer support people, can they see the tour? You mentioned that there are quality assurance people that sound like they're looking at the tour to do something, but I imagine that some clients don't want anybody looking at anything, period, end of story. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, so the default for users is to let our customer success manager view each model and to help provide feedback and guidance and be that a second set of eyes as a QA, so you don't have to worry about that kind of thing. But we do have the option to opt out of that and make it so it is a secure pipeline, so we can't see it. So we can opt out of that QA process. So it's only the algorithms processing it, and then you get the information directly.
So it's possible to say, I don't want anybody to see this. And does that meet some level of security by people who think about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so that typically kind of falls within this enterprise level customer that needs intense security or privacy requirements. And so this typically bundled with things like their own private cloud servers that they're using for data storage, controlling who has access to it. So we essentially built this platform to be very enterprise friendly. So whatever your requirements are, we have an option for you.
Okay. LiDAR support?
Yeah, so primarily Cupix is in terms of the type of processing that we do, is we use the 360 cameras to document a space. And like we mentioned, however you hold it, whether it's the helmet on a drone walking around, that's fine. But beyond that, our viewer is a very robust a viewer to be able to hold all your project data. So we can have your floor plans, your BIM models, your 360 imagery data, and also LiDAR data. So whether you're using terrestrial scanning or have like mobile mapping LiDAR, you can upload that into our servers to be able to host it all together. So similar to how you have comparing it to the BIM model, you can also view point cloud data, take measurements from it if you want to house all this data in one location. Okay,
awesome. How about in terms of exporting data? I think about, I'm at the top of the show, I mentioned 25-story, 500,000 square foot office building going through renovation. That's really at the beginning. There are no construction documents that exist for this old building. We really do need an as-built. Okay, we go create this three-dimensional Cupix model. Are there features for exporting in order to bring it into a BIM model to begin, whether it's Revit or SketchUp or other CAD programs to begin with the as-built?
Yeah, at this time, we do not provide any deliverables like that, like a 3D point cloud or a 3D mesh from our model. So there are no outputs you can download directly from our captures. So we primarily use it's more like a sparse map. So we know the pose and location of each image within it, and so we build a map that way, and it's scaled and dimensioned correctly, and that's what enables some measurements as well. But it's basically all behind the scenes. It's nothing that you can download or view directly.
So can I, a bigger level question, can I use Cupix for creating an as-built?
Not for creating a floor plan. So if you need to create a floor plan, there's a variety of methods that you can use.
Okay, but there's no exporting a three-dimensional CAD file today with Cupix.
No, you typically recommended best practice is that you already have a floor plan that you can use, even if it's outdated, something that's similar. That is ideal. Occasionally, you can come in with no floor plan and still create a capture, but the outputs that we create do not allow you to create a floor plan from it. Okay,
so score one for Matterport. We've been visiting for an hour and 15 minutes. This is actually I think the first time that we've hit something that Matterport has something, I think, today better than Cupix, which is you can export a Matterport, you can order a Matterport Matter pack, the point cloud files and a variety of other files that can then be converted to CAD programs. This is actually the first time I think we've actually hit on something that Matterport is actually better for. Though, if we're talking about a 500,000 square foot space trying to create an as-built with Matterport, good luck. You probably have to break it into 50 to 100,000 square foot spaces and shoot multiple models. And I maybe you can do the math faster than I can. If it takes 2 hours to shoot, if it takes an hour to shoot 2,000 square feet and it's 500,000 square feet, it is how many hours?
I didn't catch the numbers you threw out.
Hey Siri, 500,000 divided by 2,000.
500,000 divided.
It's 250 hours. So it would take 250 hours. I should ask Siri how many days that is. It's too massive a project to even think about. Okay. Again, and we've covered a lot of ground. Before we sign off, is there anything that we didn't cover today about building smart with Cupix?
Yeah. There's one more kind of visually interesting thing I could show related to that drone capture. Like we mentioned, we keep talking about flexibility, how you capture, types of spaces you capture. So our algorithm is able to work in a variety of environments, even in the air, mounted on a drone, flying around. So this was a 250,000 square foot facility that did a 9-minute drone flight on. And we had some of the same capabilities that are related to having it synced with your BIM. So if you're trying to understand what is documented on the roof lines, if equipment's installed in the correct location, you can look at that. So it's just one more option that we kind of give you to really handle the whole spectrum of needs your project might have. So just wanted to bring that up, and I think earlier you did mention too, like warehouses and what type of patterns you walked in a warehouse. So here you can see this is the floor plan. So you can just see the little lawnmower pattern of just zigzag walking around the space, and you can see how it's going to be built out in the future. So here it's actually in the wall.
Yeah, this is an interesting space here because if you had to do that space with Matterport, again, if you're in the AEC space, you're trying to make a decision between Matterport and CupixWorks, ask your rep specifically, your Matterport rep specifically, how that empty warehouse space gets shot. And asking them for some type of guarantee regarding success. Because I bought my Matterport camera in July of 2014, and I can tell you, and I'm the founder of a community of a ton of Matterport service providers. I think our knowledge base I'm looking at is 84,000 posts among 14,000 topics. And a lot of the discussion is about large spaces. A lot of the discussion is about large open spaces. And this is exactly the kind of space that is super challenging for Matterport to capture, because Matterport's infrared is trying to map the space, and the whole space looks the same. There's just if you're far away from those posts, then you have a shiny floor, and the ceiling's too far to read the for Matterport camera to know where it is. This is a really super difficult space to do with a Matterport Pro 2 camera. Yes, you could use a Ricoh Theta Z1, and there'll be a crazy workflow around how to use that. But the short answer is, if you have spaces, open spaces like this, super hard, probably almost impossible really to do with Matterport. I guess you could do it using some April tags, things that look like QR codes, but again, super hard and it's super large, which then creates this challenge for processing. I'm sorry, Gannon, you were showing us that space, but I just had to add that commentary to it.
Yeah, and so that's the benefit of a tripod sensor with a depth sensor, is that you, in the right environment, you have better quality like measurement capabilities, but it's also relying on that depth sensor. So in a lot of environments, it can fail. Whereas Cupix is a lot more flexible in a variety of environment types, whether flying in the air, in a large space, and of course, areas that are like these warehouses, we've actually been doing them a lot, so they work really well. Probably one of the challenging environments is always like low light. If lighting's bad, just the sensor doesn't work very well, just because it's the camera. Also, lots of repeating patterns is a chronic kind of challenge in computer vision applications. But we have ways to address that.
Before we sign off, is there anything else about CupixWorks 2.0 versus Matterport for construction professionals you feel we didn't cover today?
Just another aspect is the pricing component. Kind of the tune we've been hitting all day is flexibility, customization, depending on your project needs. The same goes with our pricing model. It's not like a one size fits all. So depending on the size of your project, the number of captures you're going to be doing, pricing can scale to that level. So it really makes it flexible for users depending on the type of projects they're working on.
Awesome. Gannon, thanks for being a guest on the show today.
Yeah, I really appreciate talking.
We've been visiting with Gannon Wilder. Gannon is product manager at Cupix. He's based in Denver, though Cupix is actually headquartered in San Jose, California. I'm Dan Smakrod, founder of the We Get Around Network Forum, and you've been watching WGAN TV live at 5.
Thanks.